section of the videotape series, we'll focus in on throws. We'll take a look at the back arch, the back step, and the pivot throw. Included also are teaching methods and basic principles as they relate to each type of throw. The first type of throw we're going to take a look at is a back arch throw. There's three elements, key elements to the back arch throw. The first is the bridge, and the bridge we can look at as being the foundation of the throw. The second thing is the back arch, and the back arch, keep in mind that the back arch is the follow-through for the throw. And the third part, probably the most important part, is the hip hop, and the hip hop is the dynamic or the power for the throw. When a wrestler's mastered those three skills, he's ready to go on and to do the back arch throw. So we'll start with the bridge. And again, as we talked about in the basic skill tape, we've got certain ways we want our athletes to do the bridge. Feet about 4 or 6 inches from the waist, a good solid foot base. Elevate the hips. You can elevate the hips, keep his shoulders down on the mat. He's going to make the bridge by pushing with his thighs and his hips. And we'll do the bridge technique. Feet could come a little bit closer to the body. Again, one of the things that we want to keep in mind through this entire progression is that the force in all of these skills should be up and back, compared to down and forward. Again, the principle is this: the knee can go above the toe, but the knee shouldn't go in front of the toe. Again, you can see in the bridge, the knee comes forward, and then pushing into the bridge, the knee's up and back. All right, so the second skill then, when the wrestlers mastered the bridge, we go to the back arch. We start out with the two-handed back arch drill. The wrestler's going to step in. Now, before he starts, he's going to step in, he's going to change his levels. This is an important part of this. And then he's going to start his back arch by extending up with his thighs, and he's going to go right into his back arch motion. Very good. And again, we want to key in on the knees and the hips, make sure that there's a force going up as he goes into his arch. And the other thing we want to key in is on the knee, to make sure the force is going up and back. And one more time, we'll show an example of poor back arch skills with the knees going down and forward. Notice the force going down. Notice the bridge is not real fluid. So again, one more good back arch, down and up. And now we're ready to go to the next step. We have to add a turn to complete the back arch. So we're going to go with a one-handed back arch. The wrestler's going to start in pretty much the same position, good low hip position. One-handed, he's going to arch. This time we're going to add a roll through. He's going to turn away from his opponent or from his partner. Steps in, good solid position. Again, key in on the knees. Nice fluid back arch. As you notice too, as we do this, the back arch drills, that there's a counterbalance that takes place. Now, the key part with the counterbalance is this low hip position, and as he arches back, he explodes up with the hips. As the hips go up, the head goes back down to the mat, and it really lessens up the impact on the head. Now what we'll look at here is a poor example of the bridge. Now, if the wrestler starts with low hips, starts to bring his hips up, going into the back arch, it's all or nothing here. If he pulls his head or if he flattens his back, he's going to land hard on the mat, and we're going to see how we take away from that counterbalance. So you must stress to your athletes that when they do this, they've got to do a full arch, looking back, going all the way through with it. All right, now the next step again, the next step will be doing the same back arch, roll through without a partner. Same position. And for safety purposes, you can see that the wrestler's using his hands, especially when they're first learning this, to make sure that they have the confidence to do this. Again, at any point in time, when the wrestler's not developed in these skills, the coach can come back. We can use a coach or a training partner to spot the athlete. And he can also use a crash pad if that's possible to, as a safety feature here, give him a little more confidence and arch through until he's confident to do it on the mat all by himself. Now go ahead and do a couple more on the mat here all by yourself. Good arch, good counterbalance. The final step in the progression is the hip hop. And for the hip hop drill, what we're going to do is we're going to have one passive partner and one active partner. The passive partner is going to present himself with his feet together. He's going to drop one arm to his side, the other arm up, and his partner, the hip hop driller, is going to walk up, he's going to straddle with a foot on each side, and then before he changes his level, he's going to be chest to chest, hip to hip, belly to belly. There should be no space here. That's the first part. The second thing is he's going to drop. changes level. Now he's going to lock and pull. And see how he sits back and then hip hop. And notice again how the motion and the force is up and back. Very important point in being able to execute the body lock at this point. This skill is very important for the wrestler to develop. Common mistakes with the hip hop, wrestlers will want to come and take a lock and they'll be all tight and nervous in here. They'll be moving around with their feet. They'll want to jump in and try to throw the guy. We want to avoid that. We want to take away the anxiety. We want to just do a gradual progression into this. If a kid's doing that, just back them up. Say, just listen, relax, come up. The progression with the hip hop is chest to chest, straddle, drop, lock, pull, hip hop. Don't let them lock before they get their hips into position. The hip position is really important in this. Drop, lock and pull, and pop. Very good. Now, one other part of this, I want you to take a look at this lock and pull action. Blue is going to drop, he's going to lock and pull, but now he's going to let go of his lock. Notice how he starts to fall backwards. I want to contrast that with a common problem. Blue's going to take a lock now, and he's going to bend his opponent forward and backwards. Now, if he does a hip hop from this position, hip hop, and if he goes forward as a follow-through, you can be pretty certain that his force is not up and back, that he's moving forward and away. One other key little thought with this, the hip hop is not a pop directly into the wrestler. You're not pushing him out and away. You're pulling and you're popping up and over the back. So again, if Blue takes this and he pops his hip in and falls forward, okay, that was a good hip hop. This time Blue's going to take a lock. He's going to pop the hips out and forward, and you can watch him go forward. Again, that's the opposite direction that we want to go. Drop, lock, pull, pop. Very good. Now, when we've mastered that skill, the wrestler's ready to do the body lock throw. Crash pads are real good at this point. We want to pull a crash pad out, have a coach present, and for learning purposes, again, we're going to have the partner present himself again in this position here. Feet together, hand at the side, and we're going to have the thrower in front of him, and start it the exact same way we just did our hip-hop drill. Chest to chest, hip to hip, drop, lock, hip hop, and go. One other thing that needs to be mentioned at this point in time is that generally speaking, you'll want to train, you'll always want to throw to the trapped arm side. So train your athletes to roll through on the trapped arm side. Okay, now we're ready to put it all together. Drop, lock, pull, hip hop, and through. This is a simple, easy method for teaching the body lock throw, a method that gives the athletes confidence, takes away their anxiety. This is probably the most difficult throw, but also a technique that is rewarded with the highest amount of points.
Here's a great example of this belly-to-belly throw with Sergei Demyashkevich of Russia, world champion in 1990.
We've just seen a back arch throw from the belly-to-belly position. Once an athlete's mastered this throw, it can be thrown from any part of the body. It can be thrown from the front, from the side, and from the back. Since we've already seen the belly-to-belly position, we're going to go on and show a side throw and two throws from the back that are very common in Greco-Roman wrestling. The first one we're going to look at is a step-around body lock. Again, step-around body lock describes itself. The wrestlers are going to start from an over-under lock. The thrower is going to step around to one side, so he's on the side of his opponent. He blocks the leg just for a moment, and then he's going to do hip hop into a belly to back. And this time we're going to do one more, and he's just going to continue with the motion. We looked at body attacks earlier. Any type of an attack that takes you to the body, you can throw out of that and turn it into a high amplitude throw. Now we're going to look at a belly-to-back position, which I think has scared many coaches off. But the first belly-to-back we're going to do is going to be straight over the top for 5 points. Now, a couple things before we do this. You want to have the opponent's feet off the mat before you go into this throw. The hip hop in this is not as important as it is in a belly-to-belly or a belly-to-side position. The important thing is that the feet are off and that there's a high arch and that it's a controlled throw. The other thing is where the wrestler locks is very important. If the wrestler locks higher on his opponent's back, it's going to be harder to take him over through the air. So you really want to lock down on the waist as low as you can for maximum effectiveness in this throw. And we'll just see an example here. The feet come off, get the feet off, pause for a second, and a nice controlled back arch right through. Now, when you're teaching athletes how to do this throw, you need to constantly let them know that they need to cooperate with their partners, that the safety of their partner is in their hands. On this particular throw, the man being thrown needs to just tuck his head and do a back roll all the way through. You should prepare him how to fall a little bit. And we'll look at that one more time. Again, notice the ease of the motion. There's not a hip hop. The wrestler doesn't rush the throw, gets his feet off the ground, and goes right into his belly to back for 5 points.
Here's 1989 world silver medalist Mike Ford of the USA with a great example of this belly to back throw. World and Olympic champion Oleg Kucherenko of Russia uses a lift to perform these examples of a belly-to-back throw.
Now we're going to look at another belly to back. This time, we're going to go from a side position. Instead of taking it all the way over the top, the wrestler is going to be at a 90-degree angle to his partner. And the key thing here that we want to emphasize is the tightness of the lock. We want to make sure that when the thrower does the back arch, that he rotates and brings his opponent's hips all the way through with them. Hip hop is important here. Hip hop and tightness. So we want even more explosion than that. Powerful hip hop and explode and rotate your opponent through the air as quick and as powerfully as you can. Hip hop.
We're going to look at several examples of a lift which goes to the side position for this belly to back throw. The next back arch throw we're going to look at is a sag body lock. And first of all, in the progression of teaching the sag, the belly-to-belly body lock should be mastered first. The sag should come later. It's a little bit more of an advanced throw. But I'd like to show a continuation of a method. After they've mastered a back arch throw, you can bring them in and do a sag. But the very first thing that we'd like to do with that is just make sure that their body position is correct. So we're going to take one partner, and again, he's going to present himself to his partner, wide base, one hand at the side. Now, the driller is going to step in. Now, at this point in time, what we need to look at here, notice he's penetrating at the same side that he's trapping the arm. Now, what we want to do is it's a sag body lock, so sagging or hanging of the thrower's weight is very important. We want to get him used to that. So he's going to pick his feet up and then plant. Pick his feet up, plant, and lift. Pick his feet up, plant, and lift. Then you can add the lift. Now, a couple things. Maybe we can turn just sideways here, get another angle. A couple other things is the hip position. The driller's hips should be tight with his opponent's hips. Now, if he sags his hips, this is not good position. So it takes a fair amount of torso strength and arm strength for the wrestler to be able to hang and keep his hips high. Now, there's better position now. Plant the feet and lift. And notice at all times, the drilling wrestler here is always in good, solid position. Even when he sets his partner down, lifts his feet, he's always got a good foot base and always ready to react to whatever his partner's doing. Okay, now the next step in this, we can start from that same position. We want to add the throw. And really with the sag body lock, it's important again that you get a deep lock on the waist, that the person being thrown feels that heavy weight on their body. And we're gonna have our red wrestler take position again and step in a good solid position, feet lightly on the ground. His opponent is carrying his weight. His opponent should have a lot of weight on this foot especially. Now, to do the sag throw, the thrower is going to pull to his right or to the underhook side slightly, and then he's going to do a good hip explosion, hip pop, and he's going to throw through to the trapped arm side. And come up again. We'll look at that at a little bit quicker speed. Again, this is a little bit more advanced throw, but I think if you take the athletes through it step by step, they should be able to pick it up quite well. The next category of throw we're going to look at is the back step throw. There's three different ways we're going to use the back step. One is we're going to use the back step to lift or hip pop. The second is we're going to use the back step to spin, and we're going to use the back step to drop. Very quickly, I'll show you an example of each penetration step. The back step throw, which is the throw where you get the high elevation, high amplitude, is we're going to make a 180-degree turn. Again, good low stance, step and penetrate, toe to heel, pivot in this solid position. So we make a 180-degree turn. On the back step spin, the hips have to clear all the way through, so we want to do a 3/4 turn. That was a half turn. Now we're going to do a 3/4 turn. A little bit more powerful hip rotation step. Again, back to a 3/4 turn. The final one is the back step to a drop, step and penetrate, and from here we're just going to throw the hips through and drop right to the knees. So those are the three basic penetration steps we're going to use for back step throws. We're going to start out teaching an arm throw, but before we do that, we have to go through the steps. We have to make sure the athlete has mastered all the skills. The first skill is a back step. Again, the back step with a half turn. The athlete's going to step, heel to toe, penetrate, real good position, weight slightly going forward, step, back step, pivot through. The second step of this, once he's mastered the back step, he's just going to add a little spring, and he's going to explode and jump forward as he makes his turn. He's in a good solid position. Very important now, too, to maintain that low level all the way through the pivot, because that's where the power's coming from. If the athlete has straight legs when he turns the corner, there's not going to be a jump, or he's going to have to readjust, back down, squat down again and jump. So he needs to stay low and tight. Step, turn the corner, explode, up and out. Okay, good. Then the next step, we're going to bring a partner out, and the partner is just going to, again, present himself, a good wide base. He's going to present his arm out. Now, a couple things when we do this. For penetration purposes, it's not to the thrower's advantage to penetrate deep between his legs. If he does that, his hips are going to get caught on his opponent's hips. There has to be some space here, and later we're going to look at a little bit of space here, at least at the beginning of the throw. So when we step and penetrate, we want to step between our opponent's legs, maybe an inch or an inch and a half in front of his toes, again, just to leave space for the hips. And step, penetrate, okay. And even without the arm, Vanny. Step without the arm to begin with, just getting them used to stepping in tight and close, step and penetrate. Okay, now one time we're just going to take a look at a deep penetration step, step deep, and again, he gets caught up with his hips. One other common mistake that young wrestlers will make is they'll step outside, especially when they start grabbing the arm. They'll step outside, they'll bring their hips out, back, and through, and we want to avoid that. So again, back step, proper back step, step in, clears the hips, and again, the weight is going out and forward. All right, now the next step we're going to do is we're going to just take the arm, since we're doing an arm throw, going to grab here at the elbow. He's going to step in. His far shoulder is going to come underneath the armpit. Step, and good position. He's going to lift his opponent and walk forward. Now, one other thing in teaching this, another common area where athletes make mistakes on this is they'll grab the arm, they'll step, and they'll get themselves all tight here with their shoulder, and they'll try to jam this through. So what you want to teach them to do is to dip that shoulder and throw that arm underneath at the same time. See how we've got space here, we've got space here. Arm through, dip the shoulder. Now we make it tight. We lift and go. Step, penetrate, dip the shoulder, and then it becomes tight again. And you can lock, grab, lift, walk forward. Now we can add a little bit of a hip hop, the same thing, just a little more explosion to it. Step, hip hop, very good. Now when we're at this point, the wrestler is ready to do the throw. So again, we're going to pull a crash pad out. Again, this is a high amplitude throw. So we want to take our opponent all the way through the air. We want to get a good explosion and land him in a danger position. Step, all the way up. Again, and as the wrestler is drilling this back step arm throw, you want to constantly emphasize height, elevation, height and elevation. Work for explosion, get him up in the air. Very good, excellent. A couple other variations we'll take a quick look at here with this high amplitude back step throws. Headlock throw is another throw you can do with the same foundation, the same back step, just doing something a little bit different up top. Hips are in the same position. Again, you're exploding, you're taking your opponent through the air. We can also do a shoulder throw. When we refer to a shoulder throw, everything is, again, is the same as the arm throw, except instead of putting the shoulder underneath your opponent's armpit, you're going to wrap his arm right around your shoulder. And there we go. See if maybe we can't get another view of that. And stop right there. You can see how the arm is wrapped around the shoulder rather than underneath. Another real common back step throw is a hip toss from an underhook position. Hips are back, a little bit of space, back step in. So those are just a few examples of high amplitude back step throws.
As you watch the following examples of the arm throw, pay particular attention to the pressure and position their opponents are assuming, which helps or assists in their executing the throw.
The next back step throw we're going to take a look at is the spin. And again, at the teaching progression, we're going to start out with the basic back step, but this time, instead of making a half turn, we're going to have the athlete do a back step to where he makes a 3/4 turn. This is very important because as we look back on our back step throw, it was very important that the hips be centered underneath our opponent's hips in order to get that lift and high amplitude. On the arm spin, however, it's very important that the hips aren't underneath, but that the hips come all the way through so that we clear it. The next thing we want to do in a teaching progression is a back step to a shoulder roll. Again, since we're not going up and through the air, we want the athlete getting used to coming down and rolling through. Back step to a shoulder roll, back step to a shoulder roll. So again, if we look at the difference between the back step throw and the back step spin, it was very important for the athlete to back step through on the throw, exploding up and out. Now in the back step spin, the athlete's going to back step through and actually go down and roll to the mat. Okay, now we're going to bring our training partner in and continue on with the progression. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the arm spin position with the grab on the elbow. Now, with the arm spin now, we're going to keep this in mind. The thrower is going to wrap his opponent's arm around his neck. Everything else applies. We don't want to penetrate too deep. We're going to dip the shoulder, make sure it gets through. And again, instead of positioning the thrower's hips here, the hips should come all the way out and through. And we're just going to step that far, just to position. Come back, step to position. Now, right here, we have to make, that's a pretty good back step, but we can make an adjustment by having the athlete pull his feet a little bit closer in, tight, nope, not out, in towards, there you go. Okay, and come back again. A common mistake that athletes do when they start to do the spin is when they spin through, they spin their hips through, they'll back and away with their hips, and that's actually the opposite of where we need to finish this. Again, let's do a back step from another angle. Okay, we back step through. We've got a good position now. When the thrower's in this position, the next thing, the momentum should come forward and across. You should continue a spin, almost in a roll-type motion, forward and across the man's body. And we have a proper arm spin. I'd like to illustrate one other point on this, and it has to do with the direction of the throw. Once the wrestler spins through, if his hips go back and away, notice there's a lot of pressure and stress on the arms, but his opponent's body is doing nothing. His feet are solid. Now we're going to come back and look at the leverage with the finish going forward and across. Forward and across, you can actually see how there's control over the whole body as he starts to go forward and across the man's body. So that's a real important coaching point in teaching the arm spin. One more time, we'll take a look at the whole thing all the way through.
Even though he was stopped partway through on this arm throw, by being in proper position, he was able to power through and still get the finish.
The last back step throw we're going to look at is a back step drop throw. We're going to do a back step drop arm throw. So we're going to start out with the basic skill of a back step drop step. And again, we're going to make a half turn, step, penetrate, this time throw the hip through, and the wrestler should just drop to his knees. If the wrestler has a hard time with this drop step pivot, another drill you can do is they can start on their knees. You can have them jump up and just spin through the air. And you can have them do that in repetition and changing directions. Nice little drill for getting them used to just pivoting those hips through, landing on their knees. Then bring them back up. They can do their back step drop throw, step, penetrate, throw the hips through and drop. And we'll try it all in one motion without bringing the toe to the heel. Step, drop. Again, we're making a half circle. Okay, now we're ready to bring the partner in and complete the throw. Again, since we're doing an arm throw, we're going to start with the same tie on the elbow. But now the important thing now, the thrower is going to lead with his right leg. Again, that's his penetration leg. We're going to save a step. We're going to make this a quick little throw. The other thing that's very important is that the thrower should create some pressure when he feels his opponent pressuring back in And especially if his opponent is extending himself a little bit and getting himself out of position, that's really an excellent time to do this throw. So he creates pressure, he feels the pressure back from his opponent, he's just going to do his little drop step, dip his shoulder underneath, and go all the way through with it. Very quick. So actually what you're doing is you're creating pressure, waiting for your opponent to pressure back, drop underneath him so that your opponent's pressure actually takes him through and he helps you do this throw. A good way to illustrate this to your wrestlers is just like this. You can say, here's what you're doing. You have your wrestler put his hands behind his back, put your hand on his chest and just say, lean, trust me, trust me, trust me, because this is what you're doing. You're creating pressure, getting your partner to pressure back in, then you're dropping right underneath him. And then you can go back and let him try to drill that again. So the shoulder pressure, leading with the foot, creating the pressure, and then dropping underneath is very important. In fact, if the pressure's not there, it's not a good time to do the throw.
Here's several examples of this back step, drop step for an arm throw.
The next type of throw we're going to look at is a pivot throw, and we're actually going to look at two types of pivot throws. When we do the pivots, the pivot on the balls of the feet is important, but most importantly, we want to be able to generate power through our leg into our hip. A lot of power right here. So a little drill you can do with your athletes before you get into the pivot throws is this. Get them in a good position, have them settle and drop their hips. We're just going to turn the hip down to the mat, power the hip through. And as you can see, as I power the hip through, how it torques and moves my whole body. There's a lot of power in this simple little motion. Good drill to get them started. Learn how to use their hips. The two penetration pivot steps that we're going to use to actually do the throws look like this. The first one, it's a straight penetration step. And some of our other throws, it was important to bend the hips. Actually, on this technique, you actually want to be straight. Here, we're going to step and penetrate, turn the toe, pivot the hip all the way through. Again, we want to make a half circle. I start facing this wall. I do my penetration step, powerful hip or pivot, torquing that hip all the way through. The second penetration step for pivots looks like this, a little bit different. We're going to step and penetrate here, leave the trail leg, and actually on this one we want a little bit more change of level, trail the leg and just rotating. If you think of a rotator on a washing machine on this type of a throw, it helps and makes sense. You want to avoid any type of an arch. You want your back, your torso straight. Step and penetrate, quick pivot. Step and penetrate, quick pivot. Okay, now we're going to bring the athletes out and take a look at these two. We're going to start out with that first penetration step. We're going to start out with a technique called a pinch headlock. This is actually a type of a reverse headlock. So the athlete's going to secure a pinch headlock position right here on his opponent. Now, one of the things that's important on this is his far forearm is going to go right across the back shoulder blade, and he wants to pull the athlete on top of his body, extend this leg deeper, and lean back just a little bit, and then he's just going to execute that first little pivot motion with his foot. Pivot, follow it right up to his back. A lot of leverage involved in this type of technique. Very effective technique right now in Greco-Roman wrestling, and actually quite easy to execute. Secure the lock tight, step and pivot and twist. He takes the athlete right to his back. Then the next pivot throw, another real popular technique in the sport, can be used for off-balancing as well as a scoring technique, is the under-overhook pivot. So we're going to step into an under-overhook lock, step deep, penetrate. Now on this one, we want a little bit of level change in the hip, but it's important that the hip is underneath here so that there's no space,
and now we're just going to do, he's going to do a quick pivot and rotate just like a washing machine. One of the common mistakes, I guess, that young athletes do when they start doing this type of a throw is they want to do an arch in here, and it's not an arch. It works on a rotator type of a principle. So one more time, we'll take a look at that. Okay, and again, straight up and down. I'd like to point out another little thing here. The rotation the pull should be to the underhook side, and also your trail leg should be on the underhook side. You want to leave as much ability to twist as possible. If the wrestler leads with this other leg and drops this leg and tries to pull to his left, he's very limited in the rotation, maybe a quarter rotation, whereas if he leads with this and rotates, he can make almost at least a half rotation, possibly 3/4 rotation. So one more time, we'll look at it. Pop, pull, twist them all the way through.
Let's look at some variations of this pivot throw.